Sit back.
All right. What's up, boys and girls, pals and gals? Let me just make sure that I am live here on Facebook. 1 second here as we get rolling here. Those that are listening, welcome. Those that are going to be listening to the recording, thank you for listening. This is the Knowing Your Numbers episode number 5 of the Sexy Business Status podcast. I am your host, Jason Payne, and the proud owner of State 48 Roofing and everything involved with it. Yeah, we're live. Let's roll. So we're going to be talking right now about knowing your numbers. Why it is so important to know your numbers, and if you don't know your numbers, how to know them, and the metrics and the KPIs, key performance indicators you need to know how to run a business so you don't go bankrupt, and so you actually make money along the way. And so you can actually have money in order to invest into your business even more. Okay, knowing your numbers is so critical. I didn't know it. I worked for my uncle for about a decade, and I didn't really know the numbers there. I was just told what to sell, how to sell it for, how much. I knew what I was paying the guys. I knew what kind of the roofs cost, but I didn't make it a priority to know what on the back end, right? Like such things as workers' comp, liability insurance, taxes, this thing called overhead, right? Where apparently, apart from the people doing the work and the suppliers, apparently there's other people involved that get paid too, I guess. And then at the very, very end, as a business owner, if you do it right, you actually get a paycheck, believe it or not. You don't work for free. Congratulations. So we are going to talk about knowing your numbers to where you can stay profitable, stay in business, and you can learn how to grow and scale, because that is what the Sexy Business Status podcast, one of the main reasons for my coaching program and also the podcast, is to help you grow and scale your business. We talk about a lot of other things, but growing and scaling your business is a passion of mine, something that I love to do, and it's one of my favorites. And I love helping people do it in their businesses as well too. So knowing your numbers comes down to, how much do you bid a job for? I don't know. How do you know that? You just throw a number, you just pull a number out of your butt and you're like, okay, here you go. The reason why you need to know that, okay, and you can tweak it. You need to always be tweaking it, always. Weekly, monthly, quarterly, you need to be tweaking it because you have price increases, you have inflation. There's a lot of different variables that'll cause the price to go up or down. Let me give you an example. So when I started State 48 Roofing, I started with Dory and a 2-man crew. So it was the 4 of us and then my wife. And what happened was I didn't have any overhead. We were running it out of my garage. I had my truck and 1 dump trailer at the time, and I'd already paid for the dump trailer, and I had my truck, payments for my truck, and Dory would come into the quote unquote office, the 3rd car garage, that we tricked out, and that was our office. So imagine your overhead. I was doing the production, all of it except for the actual installation. So I was running the trailers, ordering the materials. I was doing all of that stuff, and still as the owner, so I was an owner operator. I was doing all the sales, so I was a sales rep. So when he sold a job, guess who got the commission? This guy, right? And then I had Dory, and Dory did all the back end stuff. She scheduled all the appointments, billed all of the jobs, did workers' comp, liability insurance, taxes, audits. She did all of that. So there's only 4 people getting paychecks in the beginning. And after 5 months, we did our first $1 million, and we actually hired another person to help Dory. And I actually hired a sales rep because I couldn't go do all of the sales by myself. Our first $1 million, I sold, I think, 700,000 of it. And I had a sales rep, I think, sell 300. His name's Jared. And I think we added another 2 or 3 man crew into that. So apart from that, I'm like, okay, cool. I know what the labor costs. So in my business, at least, and especially in contracting, but in pretty much any business, you have your labor, your materials, your profit, and your overhead. You break it up into 4 categories. So your labor is how much you're going to pay the guys to do the work, your technicians to do the install, whatever the person or persons swinging the hammer, for lack of better words. Okay. The materials is, what materials do you need? Like epoxy flooring, you need the glue, you need the little flex, right? The reflective flex, the cosmetic flex. You need the equipment. The equipment would actually be overhead, but any tools or materials you need in order to fulfill the job, right? And then your overhead would be equipment like a trailer. Like you can't allocate the cost of a $10,000 dump trailer to a job, right? So that would be included in your overhead as an asset. And so that would go in your overhead. Overhead is taxes, liability insurance, workers' comp, auto insurance. If you offer benefits, all those type of things are included. Taxes are included in your overhead, including employees that are not actually swinging the hammer or that are not straight commission in regards to selling the job. So your sales team, if they're straight commission, technically that's overhead, but it's allocated to the job, because if they're straight commission, if they're salary, it goes on overhead, not to that, because if you're straight commission, you can allocate it specifically to a job. So knowing your numbers like this is so important, and you make it a priority to know it and to understand it. When you bid a job, just because you bid it, and for example, let's say you bid a job and it's $1,500. Let's say your labor and materials were $250 each, so it costs you $500 in your COGS to do the job. Well, you're going to gross $1,000. Just because you gross $1,000 doesn't mean you and your wife get to have $1,000 in your bank account. We all wish that was the case. So knowing your numbers is, okay, how much do you need for overhead? And that number could be 5%, 10%. If you're in the tech industry, it could be very, very low, which means your profit margins will be very high. But let's say you have a $500 overhead. Well, there's only $500 left. As an owner, you'd only take home $500, right? Because your crews would get $250, the materials cost $250. I put you at $500, another $500 for your overhead, which would be liability insurance, workers' comp, taxes, gas, truck, maintenance on the truck, the tires, all that fun stuff, dump fees. All those things are included in your overhead. And then after that is what you call profit. And that's what you as the owner get to take home. And sometimes that might be, just a few pennies. Sometimes you might be negative. You might not get paid $1. Everybody else will get paid and you might not make anything. And after a while, you're either going to go bankrupt or you're going to realize, dude, I'm not making any money. I'm doing all these jobs. I'm not making any money. Why am I not making any freaking money? And it pisses you off, right? And the reason why is because you don't know how much to charge. You don't know if you're charging too much or too little. If you're charging too much, you're either not going to get the job or you did and you made a ton of profit. Great job. Good job. If you didn't and you're like, oh, cool. Well, if I'm not a fan of Dave Ramsey, but I love, if you were to do this with a handful of jobs, it was a big eye opener. My uncle did it with me once. He literally pulled out, it was a $10,000 roof and he had $1,000 bills. And he said, okay, Jason, and you had used ballpark numbers because he only had 10 bills. But he said, okay, so the crew gets this many. The ABC supplier, the supplier gets this many. Our overhead, meaning our building, our trucks, like I said, taxes, liability and insurance, workers' comp, all the auto insurance, all these things go to this. Bam, bam, bam. And he said, and this is what I want on every job. And he gave himself one out of the 10 $1,000 bills. He wanted one of them, which would be a 10% net profit. So that means after everybody's been paid, that's how much you get. And he said, I want this. And he took a $1,000 bill from overhead and put it into the profit envelope and said, I want to make 20%. I said, okay, cool. I said, well, how do we do that? And you can't just take it out of overhead, all of it out of overhead. He's like, no, you take a little sliver out of labor, a little sliver out of materials, and a little sliver, meaning getting more lean and mean, and then you have that extra to put into profit. Okay. And so that's what it comes down to. When you really lay it down, you should know what it's going to cost you to do the job, what it's going to cost you, how much your materials are going to be to the penny, how much your labor is going to be to the penny, what your overhead is. And if you don't know what your overhead is, as you get going, you'll realize, and QuickBooks is the best way to track this. You'll know what your labor is, what your material is, and then literally everything else, as long as it's categorized and the line items are allocated correctly, you will know what your overhead is. And then let's say out of a $10,000 job, you know how much your overhead is. Okay. So that being said, knowing those numbers will help you know what your profit is. And if you want to be more profitable, you never want to be less profitable, right? But if you want to be more profitable, you need to increase your prices or you need to increase your closing ratios. And by doing that, that will help you be more profitable. Okay. So, and the reason why you'll be more profitable if you increase your prices is because if you increase your prices, your labor gets paid the same, your materials get paid the same, your overhead is the same. And then let's say instead of that $10,000 job, you sell it for $12,000. If it still costs you X number of dollars to do it, and let's say it costs you $9,000, like my uncle's analogy, costs you $9,000 and you have $1,000 extra. Well, if you bid it for $2,000 more because you increase your prices, well, now you have $3,000 of profit, right? Because nobody's getting paid more. All those funds are already allocated. But if you were to charge that customer $12,000 or $11,000, you'd have $1,000 or $2,000 extra in profit. Okay, that's number one. Number two, if you increase your closing ratios, you will be more profitable. And the answer, and some people say, well, how is that? By increasing your closing ratios, you don't have to go to as many houses and to go to run as many leads, as many calls. So everything, you don't have to run as many leads, and those leads cost money. So if your lead generation cost is $125 a lead, $175 a lead. Some of them are $400 or $500 or $600 to generate a lead. So if you only have to run 5,000 leads for the year instead of 6,000, right? We'll take 1,000 times $400 a lead, right? That's $40,000. Isn't that crazy? So you literally save $40,000 just by increasing your closing ratios to do the exact same number of revenue, but you save money on marketing and on ad spend and basically client acquisition costs. What it takes to acquire a client, meaning your lead generation and those type of numbers. So that being said, that's knowing your numbers on that side. Now, when it comes to running your business and operating your business, some of the KPIs, key performance indicators that I focus on, that I use and I love, and I make sure to make it a priority, are your closing ratio. You need to know what your closing ratios are, because if they're super high, my buddy Josh, we did an audit with him on his business, and we found out that his business, his closing ratios were like 50 or 60%, which is great. He's closing 6 out of 10 jobs, closing 2 out of 3. That's fantastic. And my problem is, I'm like, I wonder if he's too cheap. I wonder if he's not charging enough. And people are going with him, not because of quality or experience or whatever, but because of price. And I'm like, dude, you need to increase your closing ratios 10% like tomorrow. Because you shouldn't be closing that much. You should be in the 40 to 50 range, 30 to 50 range, and not in the 60 plus. And a lot of times people do that. Is the reason why they're doing that is because you're the cheapest bid, and now you're getting the lowest of the low quality of clients, customers, and everything else. So make sure that so we did that. So we tweaked that. He increased his closing ratio, or his closing ratios went down a tiny bit, but his profits skyrocketed because he was selling more deals at a higher margin. So you need to know your closing ratios. Also, my team struggles with this currently right now, and we're working on it, is increasing your closing ratios, lack of experience. So if you have sales reps that are not as experienced in regards to follow-up, closing the deal, asking for the sale, and all those things, your takeaway is you'll see that in your closing ratios. And so that's where follow-up is huge. If your follow-up sucks, your closing ratios probably suck. If you're very good at follow-up, your closing ratios are naturally going to increase. So you have your closing ratio, your average ticket. What is your average job, right? Are you a low ticket like pest control, where you're $50 a month, $100 every 2 months? Or are you like roofing maybe, and you're or real estate, where you're a high ticket, where our average full roof is like $15,000 to $20,000, but our average ticket's only $7,000. So I can't use the $15,000 or $20,000 because that's for full roofs. Well, if I say our average ticket's $7,000? What does that mean? That means we do a ton of small jobs, right? So that being said, we do a ton of maintenance, repairs, patios that are anywhere from $500 to $7,000. We do a ton of those. Do we get big $150,000 roofs? Yes. We're doing $50,000 and $60,000 roofs all the time. But the majority of our work is actually smaller ticket items, and so that's where it drops our average ticket from like a normal $15,000 or $20,000 roof to $7,000. So basically a third of that, which means a third of it is only a third of our revenue is full roofs. 2/3 of it is maintenance, repairs, patios, and smaller ticket items under $7,000. So knowing where your average ticket is. And then also you could say, okay, cool. Well, instead of we need to do a price increase of 5% or 10%. Let's ballpark numbers. Let's say 10%. So at 7,000, you increase your closing ratios 10%. That puts you at $7,700, and you're still selling jobs. But guess what? You just increase your closing, or you just increase your average ticket another $700 per ticket. And assuming you didn't have any price increases for labor or materials or anything else, or gas prices, you literally get to keep that $700. Well, what if you're doing $100 or 100 jobs a week at $700? That's a chunk of change times 52 weeks, right? So increasing your closing ratios will help. Knowing your ticket, knowing your average ticket will help. And then also increasing your prices will also that would be a third one. Another one that I recommend that is how many leads you've generated. When you know how many leads you generated and how much revenue you've done, that'll tell you how much each lead costs you. You'll figure that out. So if it's, if you did $10 million, you did 5,000 bids, it'll tell you, okay, that's how much it costs to acquire a client from marketing, advertising, getting in the door. That's what it's going to cost you. So know how many leads you've been to, because if you want to increase your business, increase your revenue, right, and increase your goal, you need to do more leads. You need to either increase your you need to increase your prices. You need to increase your closing ratio. And I would recommend doing both of those. And you need to go look at more floors, more pools, more AC units, more solar jobs, more whatever, right? More cars, more tires. You need to go get more eyeballs on people's products, whatever that is, on your consumer. And so, for example, if I want to go from 10 million to 15 million, I'm not going to do, unless I drastically increase my prices or drastically increase my closing ratios, I'm going to do the exact same amount of revenue if I did 10 million with 5,000 leads and I do 5,000 leads again and I don't generate more leads, then I'm probably going to do somewhere around that 10 million again, if that's what your numbers are. But if you know that, okay, cool, if it costs 10 million, if we did 10 million, and we generated 5,000 leads, what if we generated like another 1,000 or 2,000 to get us up to 15 million? Right? And that way you'll be able to know how many more leads you need to generate at whatever your closing ratio is based on your average ticket. Okay. They all go together. Once you know these are good. So you want to know what your revenue is, number one. Then you want to know what your closing ratio is. And then you want to know where your average ticket is. And then you want to know how many leads you generated. Right? And all those KPIs will tell you 95% of what you need to do in your business and to grow and to scale it. I can do that with a business that's doing $200,000 in revenue. I can do it with someone that's doing, I got a comment here. Who's commenting? Let's see what they said. Oh, be quiet. Listen to myself. Jacob Porter, what's up, dog? Oh, Matt Dallas. Matt Dallas, what's up, my man? Jacob's watching, but Dallas, what's up, buddy? Hope you're doing well. So that being said, these are all very, very important key performance indicators, KPIs that you need to pay attention to know where you've been, where you're at right now. So people I'm doing audits with that were signing up for my coaching program, when I sign them up, we'll do an hour-long audit, and I make them bring these numbers. If they don't have them, I'll go through their QuickBooks, I'll go through their CRM, and figure out what numbers they're at, and what numbers are high, and what numbers are low, and to fix those so we don't get stuck. We want to make sure that we are doing the best we can to know those numbers down to the penny. Because when you do that for 2022, you know what you did last year, and then when you change your goal to do more in 2023, you know what numbers need to change at what increments in order to hit that next goal. Because if you don't have another goal, you're going to do the exact same. You might do a little bit less or a little bit more on accident, but more than likely, if you do the exact same effort from last year to this year, you're probably going to do about the same in revenue. I have another buddy, Clint, who's in our program, who is getting ready to scale his business, and he's done, I think, $1 million for like 6-7 years in a row, which means what? He did the exact same amount of effort, right? Probably the same number of jobs, same number of ticket, same average ticket, same closing ratios, same. Well, that's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome. You're just not going to have it. So when you go from what you did in 2022 and where we're at right now, this is those that are listening later on. This is April of 2023. So quarter one's done. You should have all your reconciliations done so you know what your quarter one numbers are. I just had a quarterly meeting with my team. yesterday for 2 hours, went over all of our numbers, where we're high, where we're low, what's really profitable, what's not. And we went over all of these. What's our closing ratio? What's our average ticket? How many leads have we done this year? That'll tell you where you're at currently. So the three different phases that you want to know where you were in 2022. I want to know those numbers for the year. Then depending on what part of the year you're at, right? Now we have quarter one in the books. Now we can use quarter one as an even more precise, accurate assessment of your business, if that makes sense. And so quarter one, we know how much revenue we did, how many leads we did, how many jobs we completed, right? So the number of jobs we completed, you divide that by your revenue, that's your average ticket, right? And then you have how many leads you did. Okay, how many leads did we do? Cool. Compared to how many jobs we actually did, you divide your number of jobs by the number of leads. That'll tell you your closing ratio. And those numbers change everything. And those that do not know their numbers, you want them to know your numbers. Jacob Porter, what's up, man? Jacob Porter says, we know some of these numbers, but not quite on the leads. We need to get CRM to track our leads. Completely agree. You definitely want to get your CRM. A CRM will track all of this. Don't try and do it on an Excel spreadsheet. Don't try and do it on a yellow notepad like the baby boomers do, right? I say that my dad's a baby boomer. He's a yellow notepad Zeus. He has so many yellow notepads I can't even see straight. Get a CRM. You get a CRM, a piece of software that has a built-in computer and a built-in calculator that will spit all the stuff out to you 24/7, never gets tired, doesn't make mistakes. As long as you input the data correctly, a CRM will change your life. The very first thing you'll do, I think I was on our episode yesterday with Dory. We talked about it, how you will have, if you put in the wrong data, you're going to get wrong answers, right? But with Dory, I think we did $1 million in revenue, a little over $1 million in revenue before we got our CRM. So from August 1st of 19 through the end of the year, we did $1 million. And I think January or February, just a couple months later, we got our CRM. But we did that first $1 million with QuickBooks and with a Google Calendar. Can you do it? Yes. Do I recommend it? No. Before you buy a CRM, I would definitely research. I would find out dudes that are doing more commas and more zeros than you in your own industry. Call them and ask them, right? Maybe even pay to have their services, like a repair or a maintenance, and see what software they're using. Normally it'll say what software it came from or how it worked, or just knock on the door and say, hey, you have an amazing software. I want to grow my business. You're at 20 million. I'm at 1 million. And I want to grow my business. Can you tell me what software you're using? 98% of people will tell you they don't care, right? Because if they tell you and you don't do anything with it, cool. If they tell you and you kill it, then high five. But nobody should give you crap for sharing what CRM that you use. I personally use AccuLinks. Oh my gosh, Jason told everybody, right? It's one of the biggest roofing CRMs out there. And I did my research, and I actually worked for a company for a year that used it, and I liked it, so I just rolled with it. And we've been able to do transact over $25 million through that CRM in a little under 4 years. So have a CRM where you can plug and play and have all the facts in there. That'll definitely help you. So knowing your numbers, very important. Very it's vital. You have to. Some people are like, I suck at my numbers. The people that sit here in this chair next to me that I've talked to probably 4 or 5 of them this week, either potential clients or current clients of ours. And we're talking to them like, dude, I was like, they're like, I don't know my numbers, but I want to. I'm like, oh, awesome. Some people don't know their numbers because they don't want to know them because they're scared to death to see the real actual results of their failing business. I'm sorry. It is what it is. Some people don't want to take on that responsibility. And so if they push it to the side, they think it's going to go away. Not knowing your numbers is never going to go away, ever. It will go away because your business is going to go away and you're going to go out of business. So make sure you know your freaking numbers. Okay. I hope this helped. Thank you for listening to the Sexy Business Status Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Payne, episode number 5 in the books, part of the 30-day challenge by my boy and dear friend, Coach Nikki T. And hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you on the next one. Be great. I'm bringing sexy back.